Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. I appreciate the patience. To my super chat, if you want to give me your thoughts on this topic, this is a very interesting topic, by the way, how Joe Biden's energy policy, how the policies of the Democratic Party have not only led us towards runaway inflation, a stock market crash that we're seeing right now that I predicted last October in the Federalist. Read my article below in the pinned comment. And I think Bitcoin is going to get to 10,000. The Dow Jones is going to get to 20,000, around 20,000. And all the problems we face today, not only have their policies of ending economic activity caused problems throughout the world, and well, especially throughout this country, they single-handedly caused a spike, an increase in the price of gasoline, coal, oil, gas, fossil fuels in general. They obsessed over climate change, and the exact opposite took place. Why did the exact opposite take place? So now for poor people, working class people, individuals who are affected by the massive wealth inequality, especially the wealth inequality that exists in New York, Los Angeles, other Democratic-run cities, for example, you're going to pay more for more to fill up your gas tank, more to heat your home. Why is that? So we're going to talk about that, and you'll hear some pretty interesting, very interesting lectures on YouTube in a little bit. But to my super chat, thank you. Hit subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends about this channel. I will do a segment later this evening, probably around 9:30 p.m. or so, 10 o'clock p.m. on Russia invading Ukraine, because that's going to happen, unfortunately. Yet another foreign policy catastrophe under Biden's administration. First, he botched the Doha Agreement, and there were others too, and now this. So hit subscribe to my super chat. Thank you, Eric H526, Luke St. Martin. Thank you very much for being amazing moderators. Eric has a video game channel. If you're into video games, definitely subscribe to Eric H526's channel. Now, I want to read you this. Alex Epstein is awesome. He is awesome. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Facebook. But if you have Twitter or Facebook, or if you have Twitter, follow him. You don't even need Twitter to follow him. So you can actually just follow, see what he's doing, even if you don't have a Twitter account. I don't have Twitter, as you know. I don't have Facebook. I don't have any social media other than, obviously, my YouTube channel. Hit subscribe also to the Stock Market Crash channel. I had 2 great segments yesterday on that one, and I will have several segments this evening on the Stock Market Crash channel. Alex Epstein, we are in the middle of a mass propaganda campaign to deny the fact that Joe Biden and other anti-oil politicians have unnecessarily driven up oil and gasoline prices by reducing the supply of oil through massive restrictions on oil production and transport. Now, this is one of my main critiques of Biden. It's not just that he's never really had he's never really had a paradigm-changing accomplishment. He's just been, wherever the political winds have taken him, Joe Biden, that's where he voyaged. He wrote the crime bill. He voted for Iraq and Afghanistan. He pushed for the NATO intervention, or he was part of the NATO intervention in Libya with President Obama that destroyed a country. There's not really much that he's done. We can go through Joe Biden's history in Congress. There's nothing really noteworthy. You can't really point to something that he's achieved. But the biggest critique, one of the biggest critiques, in addition to the fact that his foreign policy generally is horrendous, is that he came into office. We had shut down, we had ended economic activity because people said You have to end economic activity. It's for the greater good. It's for the welfare. It's for the collective. This is how they speak. This is how the CNN pundits speak. By the way, C. Murph, thank you so very much. And Paul, thank you so very much. You know what? Paul Bartlett, thank you. C. Murph, thank you. Do you think that invasion will affect gas prices? Yes. Yes, it will. Gas prices will increase. C. Murph, gas prices will increase because oil is at $85, $86, $87 a barrel. Oil will be at $100 per barrel, over $100 per barrel. So yes, it'll definitely increase gas prices. C. Murph, thank you. Definitely increase gas prices. But this is a great thread, and then we're going to get to a really, really interesting video from the Manhattan Institute. Really interesting. It's something that AOC, for example, with her Green New Deal, can't refute. So we'll get to that in a second. But he goes on to say something very interesting. So President Biden and other anti-oil politicians around the world are in a bind. They want the prestige that comes with their decades of restricting the production and transport of oil. But they do not want the results. Voters angry about rising oil and gasoline prices. Since November 2020, crude oil prices have doubled, rising from about $40 per barrel to over $80 per barrel. This is before Russia invades Ukraine. Now imagine if China invades Taiwan. Imagine, this is before all of that. Just having Biden in office raised oil prices since November of 2020. Okay? So Biden wins the presidency and oil prices double. And you're seeing just with inflation alone, they're up 50%. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So I'm not certain if it's only 50% increase, but the cost per barrel of oil has increased, doubled. Okay? So, C. Murph, it's going to cost a lot more to pump your gas tank for everyone around the world. So, the interest in Paul, thank you as always. Paul Bartlett, thank you to my super chat. I can't do this without you. I do appreciate your support. I know that this isn't an extremely interesting topic yet, but it's very interesting to me, and I'm glad it's interesting to everyone here. Why is life so much more expensive? Okay? Because of the policies of Democrats. They cause poverty. They end economic activity, and then they say, well, we'll alleviate the problems we helped cause. That's the racket. We caused these problems. Look, we went from record lows in unemployment under Trump in January of 2020. We went from record lows in unemployment under Trump in January of 2020. Then, by March, we had 22 million people unemployed. That's not the fault of Trump. That's the fault of media, experts, everybody, all the wonderful experts in the room. The Democratic Party who pushed gleefully to end economic activity. Gosh, we can't. It's too soon to open up. And then they obsessed even today. It'll never end. Their obsession will never end. Okay, because if they can derive political utility, if they can try if they could try to market any catastrophe as we'll save you, we'll save the collective, we'll save you personally, they're the ones who will cause or allow the problems to fester or create the problems, and then they're the ones who will say, oh, well, we'll provide you an eviction moratorium. Well, why was there a need for an eviction moratorium? Oh, that's right, because you ended the U.S. economy, primarily to kick Trump out of office. But here, since November 2020, crude oil prices have doubled, rising from about $40 per barrel to $8 per barrel. And the average price for regular gasoline has risen from $2.10 to $3.30. It's a lot more in LA. These skyrocketing prices are contributing to low presidential approval ratings. This cause of unnecessarily high oil prices is simple. Anti-oil politicians around the world artificially restricted the supply of oil with massive threats. These restrictions prevented supply from keeping up with demand. Skyrocketing oil and gasoline prices are not a failure of the oil industry. They are a total failure of the anti-oil politicians who have artificially restricted supply of oil with massive restrictions to oil production and transport. Okay? Then he goes on to say, instead of leveling with voters and admitting, of course, many decades of supporting restrictions on oil production has led to higher prices, and things will get much worse with the restrictions I have planned. Anti-oil politicians are not denying any responsibility for rising prices. Now, if you were to ask like the million to 2 million, or well, let's say 400, 500, 3, 4, 500 sub channels, the pundits with million to 2 million to 3 million subs. One of the pundits that Bernie Sanders couldn't endorse because I can't endorse you. You wrote something horrible 10, 15 years ago. I endorsed you initially, but now I have to unendorse you. Herschel Ballard! Herschel, thank you so very much. Herschel, my man, Herschel Ballard, thank you. Thank you, Herschel. Thank you so very much. Always, every live stream, so kind of you. Herschel Ballard, thank you. Thank you, C. Murph, Paul as well, thank you. Thank you, C. Murph, Herschel, Paul, thank you so much, everybody. So, even the pundits, the $20 million venture capital pundits, the ones that Bernie Sanders, I can't endorse you, I'm so sorry. You said something mean-spirited, and horrible 10 years ago, and on Twitter, people told me not to endorse you after I endorsed you. So I'm unendorsing you. Those people, they will never talk about rising oil prices. They'll just pontificate about, climate change and the end of the planet. It's a religion. You understand? I agree that there's eventually you need to decarbonize. Yes, you have to take climate change seriously, but not in a not through this maniacal, short-sighted obsession where you don't just evolve. You don't allow the market, the free market. You don't allow. I mean, subsidies are hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies every year. More subsidies to renewable energy, far more. It's like something like 60% of all the subsidies for energy go to renewables and only 25% or so to fossil fuels, or I think to oil. But most of the subsidies the government gives for energy production goes to renewables. But here, Joe Biden, my effort to combat climate change is not raising the price of gas. Of course it is. Of course it is. He made it difficult to obtain oil and gas and coal, and now they're at all-time highs. This is basic. You don't have to be, Jeff Bezos. You don't have to be an economist. You don't have to be an economist. You don't have to be like this Adam Smith, Milton Friedman. You don't have to be an economist to realize when you make it difficult When you make it difficult to increase the supply of natural gas, oil, those things go up in price. Not that difficult to understand. It's really not that difficult to understand. Absurd. How can this effort to combat climate change, which has largely consisted of restricting oil production in the U.S. and pressuring countries and companies to do the same, not raise prices? So there you go. They'll never they'll never. All the morally superior liberal Democrats, progressives, many of them, the edgiest leftists, they don't care about. If you ask them, well, what's the price of oil per barrel? They won't tell you. They don't care. If you ask them, has it cost you more to pump gas into your car? They won't tell you, and they don't care. They'll just say ban fracking, and I used to be that type of person. They say ban fracking, or and they won't care if it costs them more to heat their homes. They won't even think about it. They won't even ask the question. And then they'll pontificate about wealth inequality and the working class and the billionaire class. These are buzzwords. These are like Pavlovian buzzwords. Okay? But here, skyrocketing oil and gas prices are not a failure of the oil industry. They're a total failure of anti-oil politicians who have artificially restricted the supply of oil with massive restrictions. Okay, so real quickly, we'll keep going, and then we'll listen to like some pretty awesome, a pretty cool a couple of interesting videos that'll explain things a lot better than I will. Faith Burrell, head of the International Energy Agency. The current situation on the energy market has nothing to do with the clean energy transformation. Yes, it does. Really? It has nothing to do with Burrell's IEA's last decade of effort to reduce the production of oil, coal, and natural gas? Of course it does. You want to evolve from fossil fuels to renewables, okay? But if you do so without the technology to replace fossil fuels, everything is going to skyrocket in price. This isn't rocket science. It's not rocket science. None of this is information that's too difficult to comprehend. El Guapo! El Guapo, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so very much, sir. El Guapo, thank you so very much. Greatly, greatly appreciated. El Guapo, thank you. Thank you so much. Greatly, greatly appreciated. El Guapo, thank you. Thanks, everybody. To my super chat, thank you. El Guapo, thank you. Thank you so much. The propaganda campaign to deny anti-fossil fuel politicians responsibility for today's high gasoline prices will say is disingenuous because it allows them to get away with supporting far worse policies, with Build Back Better being the worst. Build Back Better, aka make everything worse. Build Back Better, aka make everything worse, promises to further restrict U.S. oil production and increase prices via new bans on offshore drilling, a costly methane tax that only applies to U.S. production, and many other oil taxes and penalties. So in addition to like well over $100 billion in subsidies every year, you need fossil fuels. 60 to 80% of electric power plants are run by fossil fuels and nuclear energy. 60% fossil fuels. You need fossil fuels for wind and solar. Okay, to get the turbines there, to transport the energy, and for other reasons too. But here, to counter the anti-oil politicians' responsibility for today's gasoline prices, share this thread that explains the whole issue. So, follow Alex Epstein. He's fantastic. And so, he's fantastic. But this is really interesting. So check this out. Let me know if you can let me know if you can hear this well. So let me know if you can hear this okay. So when I start playing this, let me know if you can hear this all right, okay?
Is an existential crisis.
The green generation has risen up.
You're talking about zero carbon emissions, no use of fossil fuels.
That is the goal.
That's a goal you could only imagine possible if you have no idea how the energy economy works or how energy is produced in this country.
James Meigs, former editor of Popular Mechanics, says the Green New Deal is just not feasible.
So really quickly, remember how fast they forgot about the Green New Deal? They never talked about it. They never talked about it on in any of the debates. Biden and Kamala Harris didn't want to talk about it. And they were embarrassed of it. So it's a typical racket. They bring up something. They bring up something that's not feasible. Okay, based on their religious doctrine. It's like just basically religious doctrine. Thank you, Rainier. Thank you. It's basically like religious doctrine. Okay, they don't really believe in it, but they think it's aspirational. That's what that's what they try to say. They want you to aspire to what they consider, something lofty. And so here, let's continue.
Renewable is especially hard because it's so inconsistent.
Because the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine.
You can't just put in wind turbines and solar panels. You also have to build all this infrastructure to connect them with energy consumers, possibly very far away. And you always need some kind of backup.
So they never talk about the limitations of wind and solar. They never talk about the limitations of renewables. And you want to evolve immediately right after you ended economic activity. We have supply chain breakdowns. We have labor shortages. And again, I agree. You eventually, 60, 70, 80, or 100 years from now, will have the technology, very likely, to utilize other forms of energy other than fossil fuels. Possibly we'll have. I mean, if we stifle any... If we continue, if Democrats force the evolution from fossil fuels to renewables within the span of 10 or 15 or 20 years like they're trying to do, it ain't going to work. You're never going to, we're already seeing a recession. We're going to have a recession, a stock market crash. They're going to artificially inflate the prices of oil and gas and coal and fossil fuels. We've seen this. This is part of the religion. It's their religion. It's like they're devoid of any logic, basic reasoning skills. Yes, it's important. Yes, it could be hundreds of years from now an existential issue, but they keep using the word existential. They can't give you a date or a time when the planet's going to end. Meanwhile, fossil fuels are at all-time highs. So it's like fossil fuels are at all-time highs. It's like, okay, why are they at all-time highs? That's the antithesis of what climate change activists want. Oh, that's right, because Democrats and their policies caused fossil fuels to reach all-time highs. It's not just Alex Epstein saying this. It's everyone on this video saying this. There's a lot of academics, but see, again, there are academics, experts in the field of energy, and you have to have a thick skin. Okay, I know how it feels. I was excommunicated from the left because first I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. Then I committed the cardinal sin, oh my God, of becoming a supporter of President Trump, which is fine. I committed blasphemy twice, and I'm no longer part of that, basically a religious cult now called Democrats. But let's continue.
That means many more transmission lines and bigger batteries to store more energy.
You have to mine all these materials for the batteries, and those mines are environmentally hazardous. Disposing of batteries is hazardous. Batteries are a lousy way to store energy.
Physicist Mark Mills says the ingredients to green energy, like battery packs, are anything but green.
You have to consume 100 barrels of oil's worth of energy in China to make the battery. But I have to dig up 1,000 pounds of stuff and process it. Digging up is done with oil, by the way, big machines. So we're consuming energy to, quote, save energy. It's not a good path to go.
He called.
So I wrote about this. The first article I ever wrote in the Federalist was about the mining process of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and how the Green New Deal, its emphasis on electric cars, the batteries, the mining of these metals is very harmful to indigenous people in countries throughout the world. But again, it just be like what they do, it's all public relations. They put the words indigenous people, respect indigenous people. Then they put the words, oh yeah, we need to evolve to electric vehicles, and they don't tell you that it's the indigenous people who will suffer mining cobalt and lithium and nickel and the metals needed for electric car vehicle batteries. But see, again, it's a racket. It is a racket. My God almighty, it's a racket. It's a very lucrative racket called Democrat.
Calls the so-called new energy economy magical thinking. Wind and solar and batteries now are 10 times better than they were.
And then they stop getting better because they hit physics limits. You have to believe in kind of magical materials to get 10 times better again. In comic books, we have that. Tony Stark has that magic power source, can do things that are unimaginable today. But we know that the physics make it impossible to make solar 10 times better again.
We should also make sure we're spending money on stuff that really works. And right now, we're doubling down on technologies like wind and solar that have their place, but they're not going to get the job done by themselves. But that's where all the money's going.
Solyndra was granted a $34.5 million subsidy.
Billions in subsidies. But solar still makes up less than 1% of America's energy, and wind just 2%. And none of that energy is really clean.
We use billions of tons of hydrocarbons to make the number of windmills that are already in the world, and we've only just begun to make them at the level people claim they would like to have them built. If you pursue a path of wind, solar, and batteries, we increase how much we dig up and move by 100 to 1,000 fold. There's a magical thinking that there's somehow free lunch. If I pick this energy source, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't emit anything. It doesn't consume anything. This is in comic book land. Every energy source of energy, every kind, uses land and uses materials to make the technology and always uses hydrocarbon along the way.
Of course, we don't.
So it's not the green technology or the green energy they're talking about. It's not really green. Electric car vehicles, wind, solar, they're not really green. And they're not they're not even providing enough energy. They're not even providing enough energy to ensure that we evolve from fossil fuels within 20 years or 30 years to green energy. They don't work when the wind isn't blowing or when the sun isn't shining. And transporting the energy created is also an issue. So, and fossil fuels are a big part of making them work and function. So it's unbelievable. It's a religion. They don't really care whether or not. See, it doesn't affect them. The greatest proponents of evolving from fossil fuels to renewables are people who don't care if gas prices go up because they have enough money or they're wealthy already. They don't care. This is like a dream of the morally superior liberal Democrat. That's why, when you read the crimes going up in cities throughout the country, you'll get articles from liberal publications. Is this crime really an issue? It's like, well, the journalist or the publisher or the editor publishing that information very likely doesn't live or doesn't have to fear for his or her life, walking from the car to their apartment, or the supermarket to their car. They don't have to they don't have to they don't have to they don't have to fear about these things. It's like it's now become a religion where if you disagree, you're a climate denier. You deny the existence of climate change, which is an existential issue, and you want the planet to end, although they can't tell you when the planet's going to end, because to them that question is absurd. If the planet's going to end at any time, you might as well listen to exactly everything we say, just like when we told you to end economic activity 2 years ago, and we're still obsessed over you-know-what. By the way, Aaron Rodgers is a hero.
Don't see that when we look at, say, wind turbines. They're beautiful. The gleaming blades,
They take enormous amounts of land. So you got to clear cut the forest. These machines kill a lot of birds. I agree that we should bring down our carbon emissions. There's the global warming risk. There's also the risk that the oceans become more acidic and start killing off the plankton. But we should also make sure we're spending money on stuff that really works.
Why are we making electric cars?
Are electric cars what really works?
Electric cars are great for the environment.
If we just switch to electric cars, we'd use less fossil fuels.
How do you make electricity?
By the way, love John Stossel. Love John Stossel.
Coal and natural gas,
Yeah.
fossil fuels.
Yeah, exactly.
Many electric car buyers don't realize that most of America's electricity comes from coal and natural gas.
So 63% of electricity is from coal and natural gas. Then around 20% from nuclear, and less than 20% from renewables. Juan Pablo Corsi, Splenda does. Splenda. I'm gonna have a chart on the Splenda soon. Splenda does way more. Splenda does way more damage to the climate. Yes, Juan Pablo Corsi. Yes. Thank you, Juan Pablo. Thank you. So you look, ladies and gentlemen, and they don't know this. They don't care. Do you understand? AOC doesn't care. They don't care. They do not care if 60 to 80% is coal, is fossil fuels and nuclear energy. That's what powers this country. Okay? To them, everything is in their fantasy. That they live in the Alec Baldwin liberal Democrat fantasy Alice in Wonderland world. Their sensibilities equate directly to morality. Owning a firearm is immoral to them. Owning one to protect yourself, me owning firearms, you owning firearms is immoral. They have conflated morality with their own sensibilities. They've redefined, they have to redefine words. Morality is no longer morality. It is whatever coincides or fits with their sensibilities. They have to redefine words in order to get their ideas across. Then they have to silence and suppress and utilize euphemisms also. Climate denier. Denier, you deny! No, I wouldn't be denying anything by refuting your argument. A refutation of your absurd argument is not a denial. Okay? Simply refuting your argument isn't a denier. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
People think they're doing something wonderful, buying a Prius.
They're basically burning coal and natural gas from the shale fields
But electric cars will get a lot better.
Sure they will. I'll make the windmills a little better and they'll get cheaper. Solar arrays will get cheaper. The problem isn't that they'll get a little better. A little better is not enough. They can never get 10 times better.
But there is one energy source that
Okay, then they talk about nuclear, and we'll skip that just because, basically, we'll skip that for certain reasons. Algorithmic issues. And let's get to, okay. Oh, actually, here we go.
plants be shut down.
In Bernie Sanders' home state of Vermont, they shut down their one nuclear plant. But guess what happened? Their carbon emissions went up. So the supposedly green state, ultra-liberal Vermont, actually went backwards.
These efforts, great expense, by literally nothing.
We have to get to 100% renewable energy in years.
You can't get 100% renewable energy in even 20 years or 30 years because you don't have the technology, and fossil fuel prices will go through the roof because you don't have the technology to do so. This is not rocket science. Even I can understand this. Even a simpleton like me. The real issue that Juan Pablo brought up is Splenda. We need Alec Baldwin to create some kind of Splenda like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory with his maniacal brain. Baldwin's, I'm saying. And derive fuel from Splenda. Maybe he can draw a very frightening drawing like he did. Who knows? There'll probably be some more information this week coming out. Involuntary manslaughter charges, almost certainly from the district attorney in Santa Fe. But here,
They want to impoverish all of humanity today to solve a punitive problem in the future. I think that's immoral.
If the Green New Dealers win, who's hurt the most?
Poor people. Having energy and food cost more means it's a higher percentage of the household budget. That's who we hurt. We're charging more for people who can't afford it, and we give money.
poor people suffer the most from these Democratic Party policies. Then what they do, and here's the racket. Then the racket is the following, ladies and gentlemen. The racket is the following. Create the poverty, exacerbate the poverty, then say we're going to help you. We're going to alleviate the poverty by pumping money into the problem. Make sure oil prices or make sure gas prices are at all-time highs because you want to save the environment. End economic activity, which causes 15% inflation. Go to the supermarket. It's twice the cost for meat, fish, or almost twice. Eggs, no, I mean not twice for bacon, but 17 to 20 to 30% more in terms of, I mean, honestly, it almost seems like 40% more at the supermarket. Am I wrong on that? Just a poll here. In the super chat. I mean, I'm sorry. In the chat. In the chat. In the chat, what percentage do you think, what percentage increase on your on your food costs do you think, what percentage increase when you go to the supermarket? I would say double also, right? I would say double also. What percentage increase? Would you say double? Ground beef is, yeah, ground beef is very ridiculous. Doubled at least, right? I mean, they say the Bureau of Labor Statistics says, I would say 40 to 50% also. But they say something like 20%. It's more than 20%. They're lying all the time. They're lying all the time. God.
To wealthy people in the form of subsidies to buy $100,000 cars and put expensive solar arrays on their roof, or to be investors in wind farms. So we have an upside down Robin Hood going on in our country to the tunes of tens and hundreds of billions of dollars. That's a bad deal.
So the Green New Deal, even if it were scientifically possible, would hurt the poor, cost everyone more, and make energy less reliable. Yet it's popular.
It's popular because it's a religion. It is a religion. I've been trying to tell people since I was a part of the religion in the Bernie Sanders days. Actually, I wasn't trying to tell people. I was actually part of the religion. I wanted to ban fracking. I had no clue that you would. Natural gas prices are double. If you ban fracking, they would be 5, 6, 7 times the price. It is 5 times the price to heat your home in Europe as it is here. No. Sorry, it's actually over double the price. But the natural gas price has increased by 5-fold. Okay, so this is an interesting one too. This is a TED Talk with I'm not really into TED Talks at all, but Michael Schallenberger, really interesting, very, very intelligent man. So hold on one second. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so all right, here.
Between 2009 and 2015, the US invested $150 billion in renewables and other kinds of clean tech. But right away, we started to encounter some problems. So, first of all, the electricity from solar rooftops ends up costing about twice as much as the electricity from solar farms. And both solar farms and wind farms require covering a pretty significant amount of land with solar panels and wind turbines, and also building very big transmission lines to bring all that electricity from the countryside into the city. Both of those things were often very strongly resisted by local communities.
So solar and wind, just transporting the energy is difficult, and also requires fossil fuels. And what he'll talk about is the following. He's going to say that a lot of counties and cities and municipalities didn't want to deal with the headache. So check this out.
As well as by conservation biologists who were concerned about the impacts on wild bird species and other animals. Now, there was a lot of other people working on technical solutions at the time. One of the big challenges, of course, is just the intermittency of solar and wind. They only generate electricity about 10 to 30% of the time during most of the year. But some of the solutions that were being proposed were to convert hydroelectric dams into gigantic batteries. The idea was that when the sun was shining and the wind was blowing, you would pump the water uphill, store it for later, and then when you needed electricity, run it over the turbines. In terms of wildlife, some of these problems just didn't seem like a significant concern. So when I learned that house cats kill billions of birds every year, it put into perspective the hundreds of thousands of birds rather that are killed by wind turbines. It basically
Is that it's interesting? Have you seen a house cat do that? I don't know. I don't. I'm not really fond of cats, to tell you the truth, but I've heard of cats going after mice or like rats, but not birds. Maybe I just don't know. Has anybody seen a cat? Anybody seen cats that go after birds like that? Am I wrong here? Anyway.
Seemed to me at the time that most, if not all, of the problems of scaling up solar and wind could be solved through more technological innovation. But as the years went by, these problems persisted and in many cases grew worse. So California is a state that's really committed to renewable energy, but we still haven't converted many of our hydroelectric dams into big batteries. Some of the problems are just geographic. It's just you have to have a very particular kind of formation to be able to do that. And even in those cases, it's quite expensive to make those conversions. Other challenges are just that there's other uses for water, like irrigation, and maybe this is the most significant problem, is just that in California, the water in our rivers and reservoirs is growing increasingly scarce and unreliable due to climate change. In terms of this issue of reliability, as a consequence of it, we've actually had to stop the electricity coming from the solar farms into the cities because there's just been too much of it at times. Or we've been starting to pay our neighboring states like Arizona to take that solar electricity. The alternative is to suffer from blowouts of the grid.
And that's a huge problem. This is why I probably won't buy a Tesla ever or any electric car vehicle. I don't want to be beholden to power outages. What happens if you have an electric vehicle and there's a power outage and you know what? You haven't charged your car. What if there's a power outage in the city and you're stuck, 10 miles from your house with your family? So I mean, you know what? Like the edgiest, furthest left socialist communist. Oh, you're saving the planet, man. It's like, well, you're also like they're so into this communist ideology, the collective. It's like, well, or Marxist ideology. You, if Democrats, if their main goal is to protect and safeguard the welfare of a collective or of most people, they're abysmal failures. They fail miserably at that. Okay? Everyone now has to pay a tax called inflation. Everyone now has to pay a tax called inflation. Inflation is a tax. Okay? It is a tax because you have made the wrong decisions economically. And it was Democrats who pushed, and it's the experts that they revered. Of course, any expert or authority that disagrees is, a horrible quack, outside the mainstream, doesn't believe in the consensus, and should never be listened to. They have tried to silence at least 30, 40, 50 people in the past couple of years. Like well-known people. Everybody from doctors to academics to experts to people, well-known people in business. They have tried to silence and suppress, and that's how they do things. They coerce or they enforce and they intimidate a certain group of experts or authorities or academics into a consensus. And anyone who disagrees is excommunicated. They've committed blasphemy and heresy, and they should never be listened to again. Ricarda, thank you. And that's the thing. It's this consensus we're going to see everything crash down, unfortunately. And I don't want that to happen. Like I said, if you're a communist or a socialist or a liberal Democrat, I don't want you to lose money. I don't want anyone to lose money because that's not good. That affects the lives of people that, have nothing to do with politics. Their political viewpoints are causing this country to just collapse economically. And what we saw last week is nothing. 2,000 points down in the Dow. That's nothing. It's going to get to close to 20,000. And if it gets to 23,000 or 22,000, okay, you know what? I was pretty close. Okay? But let's continue.
And it turns out that when it comes to birds and cats, uh, cats don't kill eagles. Eagles kill cats. What cats kill endangered species are wind turbines. In fact, they're one of the most significant threats to those big bird species that we have. We just haven't been introducing the airspace with many other objects like we have wind turbines over the last several years. And in terms of solar, building a solar farm is a lot like building any other kind of farm. You have to clear the whole area of wildlife. So this is a picture of 1/3 of one of the biggest solar farms in California called Ivanpah. In order to build this, they had to clear the whole area of desert tortoises, literally pulling desert tortoises and their babies out of burrows, putting them on the back of pickup trucks and transporting them to captivity, where many of them ended up dying. And currently, the current estimates are that.
Okay, so it's not good for it's not good for wildlife. Then the response is, well, neither is oil. That's true. But the whole point, though, is you want to evolve to a safer alternative than oil, and you're not doing so. You're not entirely doing so.
Power onto the grid. Just take, for instance, what's happened in California. At the period in which solar panels have come down in price very significantly, same with wind, we've seen our electricity prices go up 5 times more than the rest of the country. And it's not unique to us. You can see the same phenomenon happened in Germany, which is really the world's leader in solar, wind, and other renewable tech.
Love reading one of the messages. Listen, you know what the thing is? You can't be like liberal Democrats who they want you to suffer if you don't listen to them, and they want you to suffer if they can spin their ideas into, oh, see, I told you so. But see, their I told you so moments are contrived. This I told you so moments, like Sharon talked about the other day, hey, when can we tell you I told you so? It doesn't matter if there is a 2-week power outage, if a meteor comes crashing down to Earth, if they're stuck in the middle of the ocean, circled by great white sharks and hammerheads and reef sharks, and it doesn't matter if they get hit by lightning, an ICBM is flying above them, about to land right where they're, trying to tread water. And it doesn't matter. They're never there's never going to be an I told you so moment, because they don't they don't they don't see the world in any other way than Trump bad. And we don't have Trump, so that's it. Anything's better than having Trump. Max deplorable 2A. In New Jersey, we have many outdoor neighborhood cats that routinely hunt and eat small birds as well as mice, chipmunks, etc. Can I tell you something, Max? I need that type of. I wouldn't mind. Like, if I had cats that did that, I think, like, cats in California don't. I don't know. I've never seen cats in California do that, but that's awesome. That is really awesome. I'd have 2 cats if they could hunt. But you know what? That is pretty awesome. Max deplorable, thank you. Thank you. I see sometimes at night, like, these coyotes, and they're scrawny. I feel kind of bad for them, but they're like scrawny. These coyotes, Ricarda Sunessen, thank you, Ricarda. Thank you so very much. Ricarda Sunessen, thank you. I hope all is well. Thanks, Ricarda. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. I hope all is well. Ricarda, thank you. Thank you, Ricarda. As always, thank you so much. Let's continue here. Thank you, Ricarda.
Technologies, their prices increased 50% during their big renewable energy push. Now, you might think, well, dealing with climate change is just going to require that we all pay more for energy. That's what I used to think. But consider the case of France. France actually gets twice as much of its electricity from clean zero emission sources than does Germany. And yet France pays half as much, almost half as much for its electricity. How can that be? Well, you might have already anticipated the answer. France gets most of its electricity from nuclear power, about 75% in total. And nuclear just ends up being a lot more reliable, generating power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for about 90% of the year. We see this phenomenon show up at a global level. So, for example, there's been a natural experiment over the last 40 years, even more than that, in terms of the deployment of nuclear and the deployment of solar. You can see that at a little bit higher cost, we got about half as much electricity from solar and wind than we did from nuclear. Well, what does all this mean for going forward? I think one of the most significant findings to date is this one. Had Germany spent $580 billion on nuclear instead of renewables, it would already be getting 100% of its electricity from clean energy sources and all of its transportation energy.
So basically, you have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where they want to talk about, they just want to kind of push a religious doctrine. It's a religious doctrine. So here, funding wind and energy, and I don't know if HuffPost, like when I was writing and getting published in the Huffington Post, they would publish these things, the articles that didn't fit the morally superior liberal Democratic Party narrative. I don't know if they publish these things now, but here, funding wind and solar energy is inefficient. Instead of spending billions of dollars to prop up today's inefficient wind and solar energy, we should be investing more in green research and development to innovate the price of green energy down below fossil fuels. So this is by Bjorn Lomborg. He's awesome. And I'm going to read you this. This is astounding. Check this out. A new report from the same Bloomberg. Okay, so Bloomberg warned about fossil fuels and all that stuff. A new report from the same Bloomberg now warns that if subsidies are phased out by 2020 in the UK, the renewable industry will dry up and drop off a cliff. And the same thing here. If they're not subsidized, then they don't exist. They just don't exist. That's not the case with fossil fuel companies. That's not the case. If they're not subsidized, they don't exist. But if they're already cheaper now, why on earth would it matter if we stop paying even more for wind after 2020? With formidable double-speed, Greenpeace tries to square this circle by saying that renewables are both competitive and need subsidies for many years after 2020. Wind and solar energy are at the point of becoming really competitive with fossil fuels, but failure to support them for another few years will result in huge losses of potential jobs. They're not going to be competitive. Even 10 years from now, they won't be competitive. Because the technology, unless the technology advances to where wind and solar can generate energy when there's no sunlight or when wind isn't blowing. And the transportation of that energy becomes more efficient. So I mean that's a huge issue. This is a claim we've heard many times since the 70s. Just a few more years of subsidies and we'll be off. In 1976, Lovins told us that, quote, a largely or wholly solar economy can be constructed in the United States with straightforward technologies that are now demonstrated and now economic and nearly economic, and it still isn't. Truth is, wind and solar will be trivial contributions to global energy for the next quarter century. So 25 years from now, they're still not going to be, according to the author. The International Energy Agency estimates that today just about 0.5% of global energy comes from solar and wind. 0.5%. Even in 2020, even in 2040, if everyone does everything they've promised in the Paris Climate Summit, the world will get just 2.4% of its energy from solar and wind by 2040. And by 2040, AOC says she wants 100% renewables. And even the International Energy Agency, which agrees with AOC, says, yeah, you know what? By 2040, we're only going to get 2.4% from wind and solar. So, like, none of their policies are feasible. Like, none of this is feasible. It's just not feasible. None of their policies are feasible. It's part of a religion. This is like religious doctrine to people who don't believe in God. So it will cost a fortune. This year, the world will spend about 106 billion. That's just, I thought that was okay. The world will spend 106 billion on subsidies for solar and wind. And even by 2040 will not be cheaper than fossil fuels. We'll still have to pay 84 billion in subsidies annually. The International Energy Agency estimates that even by 2040, renewables will on average be more expensive both in the developed and developing world than any other energy source like oil, gas, nuclear, coal, and hydro. Okay. This is true. See, instead of spending billions of dollars to prop up today's inefficient wind and solar energy, we should be investing in more green research and development. I agree with that, to innovate the price of green energy down below fossil fuels. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is when you look at let's just look at the Dow Jones. Now, let's get back to this. We're probably going to see the market tank either this week, next week, the week after, even further. It's already tanked. The market crash that I've been telling people about, the market crash I've been telling people about is here. Okay. You have IBM, Amazon, Tesla earnings this week. If they don't have rosy forecasts, because they'll probably, beat earnings estimates, but that's not going to really matter. What matters is Wall Street's going to want them to say, oh, yeah, and the future is going to look good. Elon Musk himself stated we're going to have a recession. So here's what he said. If history is any guide, not many will make it past the next recession. And Tesla is coming out with earnings this week. And here he goes. Predicting macroeconomics is challenging, to say the least. My gut feeling is maybe around around spring or summer 2022, but no later than 2023. And he's not a fan of Build Back Better. Nobody ever said, God, our recession is because of infrastructure, or because of not enough child tax credits, or because of not enough paid pre-K, or because of not enough paid leave. Nobody ever blamed economic problems on these things. Why? Build Back Better does not. The National Association of Manufacturers said it would lose 1 million jobs. So Manchin saved this country, because what Elon Musk was saying also pertaining to Build Back Better was, we already have record-breaking deficits, trillion-dollar budget deficits, $1 trillion. The U.S. government is spending $1 trillion more than it gets in from taxes. Okay? And when Trump had, deficits approaching $1 trillion, oh my God, look, well, at least, but his deficits were from tax breaks that helped everybody. It wasn't just the 1%. Everyone was doing better because we had record low unemployment. You can't say Trump didn't preside over a great economy. He did. Even his detractors say that, he presided over a good economy. But then they say, well, it was President Obama's economy. It wasn't his. They find some way to deflect from actually giving him credit. But when the when we see what's going to take place with the stock market crash, we're seeing the beginning of the stock market crash I've been talking about since October. Lord knows what's going to happen. The recession's probably we'll have a recession. And then Lord knows what's going to happen with the economy. And they're going to spin it. They're going to say, oh, it's because we didn't pass Build Back Better. It's like, well, that would actually make things worse. Imagine what's happening now. How many people here in the chat, how many people, thank you, Eric H526, how many people noticed everything from food to gas prices become more expensive after mashed potato brains got in the White House? The market crash will affect everybody because you're going to have a recession linked to the stock market crash. A recession will affect everybody. Stock market crash will also increase the price, will also exacerbate inflation. Inflation will increase after the stock market crash. D-Rock, thank you. Greatly appreciated. D-Rock, thank you for the kind words. So you have Elon Musk. This is interesting. You have Tesla. You have Tesla. Hold on one second. You have Tesla earnings. You have Tesla earnings coming out. Analysts bullish on Tesla earnings. So, you have Tesla earnings coming out when? January 26th. So, Wednesday. It's below, Tesla stock now is below So let's see. It just reached below. This is interesting too because When was the last time it was below 1,000? Okay, December. It was below 1,000 for a moment in December that went up. And so it's below 1,000, but actually it didn't, let me see, it didn't hit 899. It was at $899 on December 20th. Got to $1,200. Got to $1,200 in November. November was the height of the madness. The height of the madness was in November. In October, I said the stock market crash is imminent. And it's going to happen. And I wrote about that in the Federalist. That article's below in the pinned comment. As you know, I have my stock market crash channel. Andrew Morgan! HA, you care to comment on the situation on hedge funds shorting meme stocks and the possibility of them getting crushed because they have not recovered? Well, Andrew, that is the GameStop situation with, I think it was Citadel. They had to get bailed out. And initially what's going to happen, Andrew, is they're going to every hedge fund that makes the wrong bet initially will probably get bailed out. So, Andrew, they're only banking on getting bailed out. Now, in the next couple of months, Andrew, they're not going to be able to get bailed out. I'm not sure how many more hedge funds are shorting companies like meme stocks, like GameStop, but they did get bailed out initially. And we'll look at that in a second. Andrew, thank you so very much. Jim Pittman! What are your thoughts on RV this month? Let's see. I don't really like if you know what, if you're I don't know exactly what, for some reason I don't know exactly what RV, I don't know what you're referring to. I apologize. I feel bad. I feel stupid. But Jim, you looking at the stock price or what's wrong? RV. I'm having a senior moment now. Jim, thank you. I'm having a senior moment. And I apologize in advance. So let's see. RV, is that a. Tell me if you could write, if you could, Jim, I apologize. I don't have any thoughts at this moment. Reevaluation of currencies. Okay. Um, the dollar will probably go down in price, or I don't know, could go up in price with volatility around the world. I'm not sure. Inflation's going to hurt the dollar, but then people will be frightened into the dollar. So I'm not sure. Jim, I can't give you a more accurate viewpoint than that. The only thing I can say is I think Tesla's going to go down to 10,000. That I'll say. But it's RV. RVs are pretty awesome. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Andrew. You know what? Let's look at really quickly. Jim, thank you. This short seller just got a $2.75 billion bailout. So they get bailed out. Hedge fund giant joining forces to bail out trader whose position in runaway stocks like GameStop has been getting hammered. Griffin Citadel are investing a combined 2.75 billion. Oh, sorry, Melvin Capital Management. So Melvin Capital Management is the hedge fund that almost went under because of GameStop, and they were invested 2.75 billion into it. So they got they got they got bailed out. So initially I think that Andrew, I think that they're just these hedge funds are expected to get bailed out, or if they're not associated with much larger hedge funds, then they'll just go the way of Archegos. But you look, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to get bad, very bad. And it's already starting. If you look at the Dow futures, go to the Dow futures. Dow futures down 265. NASDAQ down 297. Okay? What the heck? So you have Dow futures down 265, S&P down 55, and Jeremy Grantham thinks the S&P is going to get to 2,500. But if the S&P gets to 2,500, Dow will get to around 20,000. And who knows where the Nasdaq's going to go? But I mean, you look, ladies and gentlemen, and simply beating earnings, that's not going to really matter. That's not going to really matter. Um, what's going to matter is future earnings. So, Jim, I wish I could give you a better viewpoint on the currency situation, but I apologize for that. But I appreciate your support, Jim. Thank you. The Dow is going to tank to S&P, NASDAQ, Bitcoin, everything's going to tank. I don't want that to happen, but it will. I mean, I don't want people to lose money. I don't want people, I don't want, like I said, if you're the edgiest lefty, if you have Joe Biden, if you're one of the 2 or 3 people on this planet that have Joe Biden bumper stickers, I don't want you to lose money. I don't want you to lose money. I don't want you to lose money. You know? I don't want you to lose money. And so, Andrew, thank you. Andrew, thank you. I appreciate it. I've been telling everyone for a long time. I've been telling everyone for a long time. I've been saying, please, please, please go ahead, have cash, as I've been begging for Super Chat, but have cash on hand, have savings. Make sure you have liquidity and savings. Freedom Maker, Thunderdome. 2 go in, 1 come out. It's probably going to look more like Escape from New York. Escape from New York, which is basically Southern California at night, or Escape from LA. I don't want this to take place, but it's going to get bad. 2022 is going to be a very, very difficult year financially for people invested in the market. Or I shouldn't say that. I'll say for people who are over leveraged, have stocks on margin. If you have stocks on margin, try your best to get off margin. It's going to be terrible. People are going to lose. They're going to get margin calls. Hedge funds will probably go under. Andrew, like Melvin Capital. It's just a matter of if the market goes down too quickly and people can't get out of, bad bets, options, or they can't, or stocks that they have money that they purchased on margin. If it goes down too quickly, and I think it will go down very quickly in the next couple of months, you'll see hedge funds go under. Then the hedge funds will have to get bailed out. Then banks will lose billions in the money that they gave the hedge funds. You have derivatives trades that are going to cause big problems, and it's just going to be bad. And they will spin it somehow. They're going to spin it somehow. You know what they'll say? And I'm not joking. Hold on. They're already saying it. Hold on. They're already saying it. So Goldman Sachs cuts U.S. economic forecast after Joe Manchin rejects Build Back Better. It's like, well, Build Back Better wasn't going to do anything for the economy, so why would Goldman Sachs cut forecasts? They were already talking about, Democrats months back, this is going to cause a stock market crash. Like, no, your decision to end economic activity 2 years prior, and your energy policies, which is what Alex Epstein and everybody we heard talk today. Those are the reasons why. It's Democratic Party policies. Margin is when you buy stock with money that you borrow. So I don't think it'll get depression era. I think it'll get just a recession, which is bad already. We already had a recession, so self-induced. Or a severe downturn economically. It'll be like 2008. It'll be like 2008. This is a direct result of ending economic activity, blaming everything on Trump, thinking that his personality was worth economic problems. They would rather have economic catastrophe than deal with Trump. They would rather have economic catastrophe and no Trump than a great economy with Trump's personality. They can't stand Trump. That's the thing. They just cannot stand Trump. Their lives revolve around Orange Man Bad. That's it. That's what their lives revolve around. Now you have Russia and Ukraine, and it's like any moment now they're going to invade. And now there's talk about installing a pro-Russian leader in Ukraine. So imagine if this goes down. What do you think happens to the price of fossil fuels? It goes up. Putin benefits. Then you have mashed potato brands saying, you don't even know, man. Come on, man. You don't even know. We're going to have so many sanctions and, oh my goodness. And it's like, they don't care. Putin, in a battle of wits between Putin or Z and mashed potato brands, who do you think wins? In a battle of wits and a battle of intellect between Putin and Biden, it would be like the 85 Bears against Jerry Nadler's softball team. It would be like Usain Bolt in a race with Jerry Nadler. Who do you think wins? And they already have everything. Our society is obsessed with this political allegiance. And Russia and China already have, like, they have a strategy and a game plan and a roadmap to where they want to get to, what they want to do. Russia has already had hundreds of billions in gold, purchasing gold. They supply Europe with 30 to 40% of. So they supply Europe with 30 to 40% of oil and natural gas. You think they care about Germany's leader rejected Biden. Biden is like, hey, come on, man, you wanna have a meeting, man? And he's like, no, I can't. Okay, that was horrible. That was the worst accent of all time. Anyway, he said no. He was busy. So it's like, when this, terrible geopolitical issue takes place, what do you think is going to happen to the market? The stock market, and it went up because of $10 trillion pumped into the economy. This is based on liberal ideology. Pump money into the economy. Have government pump money in. They even have different theories on how money should be pumped into the economy. It's a very good thing. It's very good. Well, that caused inflation. They want universal basic income. Yet another thing, a racket that the left, will never, ever in a million years get, in addition to Medicare for all and Green New Deal and student loan debt. Nothing that they want, they'll get, but it's a racket where they promise the world and get nothing. And they still vote Democrat no matter what. JG, hello! JG, hello! So, you have pre-market trading of, it looks bad. But then it says here, implied open up 219. What does that even mean? Implied open up 219. The Dow futures are down 245, but the implied open means it's up 219. Okay. That makes no sense, but look, the market could go up. The market could go up. The market could go up this tomorrow, or even I don't think it will, but it could go up this week. The crash has already started, so it's going to get really bad. The stock market is counterintuitive, which you expect to happen. Oftentimes, the opposite takes place, but there are too many. There are too many risk factors. There's too much risk. It's too overvalued, and you have people like Jeremy Grantham and Michael Burry and Elon Musk. And Elon Musk saying we're going to have a recession. So it's interesting because the stock market is not taking into account the potential catastrophe here. In Ukraine, what we'll do? Okay, so and this is typical. Britain pursues more muscular role. Oh, muscular. What kind of muscular role? Instead of they get 30% of their oil and gas from Europe. The EU gets 30% of its oil and gas from Russia. What kind of muscular role? One hour ago, U.S. orders families of embassy staff to leave. So it's going to happen any moment now. Unfortunately, it's terrible. But see again, why is this happening under Biden's watch? I thought that Democrats were the cold warriors. I thought that Putin was so afraid of Democrats because Putin was frightened of the Democratic Party. All the most uh, all the most intelligent and knowledgeable experts at Brookings and all these institutions and academic conferences and organizations and always thought he was so afraid of NATO, and he doesn't care about Democrats. If anything, he has the goods on all the Democrats. They can't type an email without some kind of national security scandal. So why is this happening? We're going to have a recession. Russia's going to invade Ukraine. Lord knows what China's going to do with Taiwan, all under mashed potato brains watch. And can I tell you again how much I love Aaron Rodgers? Love Aaron Rodgers. And it's like the people who don't like him, or the people who don't like anyone who thinks differently, if you think differently, you're viewed as like a heretic. You've blasphemed. So Ukraine, U.S. orders families of embassy. U.S. orders families of embassy to leave. The U.S. has ordered the relatives of its embassy staff in Ukraine to leave amid rising tensions in the region. State Department has also given permission for non-essential staff to leave and urged U.S. citizens in Ukraine to consider departing. Wow. So it could be any day now. Knowing this State Department, it's like an hour from now. They're like 3-4 days too late. You don't want bumbling Blinken or mashed potato brains to be part of anything that has to do with a person's safety. I mean, you just don't. You just don't. I mean, this is going to tank the market also. See, everything in November, the market was at all-time highs with $10 trillion pumped into the economy and $1 trillion in margin debt. That's like a 340-pound offensive lineman skating on a frozen lake. And everything has to go perfectly for the ice not to just break and him to go crashing down into the cold water. You like that analogy? And so everything has to be perfect for the system not to completely implode because of Democrats. Everything has to be perfect. No geopolitical problems, no negative earning or earnings misses or whatever disappointing outlook. No derivatives margin calls like Archegos. No meme stock debacles. No inflation. Everything has to run on all cylinders or the thing. It's like the last couple seconds of Spaceballs. His spaceship will self-destruct in 1 minute. Have a nice day. That's what. That's what we're heading to. The spaceship will self-destruct, and all life forms will cease to exist in less than 1 minute. Have a wonderful day. That's unfortunately what's going to take place. And it's like Andrew. it's oh my God. It's it's like everything needs to um I'll check him out. Juan Pablo, I'll check him out. Gregory Manarino. Okay, let's see. Um I mean, this week will prolong it. Um I agree with that. Inflation's not going to slow down. I agree with that. This is the thing, it's like there's going to be a catastrophe. Um, there's going to be a catastrophe, and it's going to be very bad. This is hilarious. Implied open. I think they added that. They added the implied open because there's. I think they added the implied open. I never saw an implied open ever until recently. Did you ever? Did anyone see? If you can help me out, did anyone in the chat see an implied open? Am I losing my mind? Am I losing my mind? JG, am I losing my mind? Eric, am I losing my mind? Did anyone ever see an implied open for the Dow futures and Nasdaq and S&P futures? In the chat, can somebody tell me? Colleen, a couple years from now. I think a couple years from now. Right? JG, right? We've never seen that. Bombastic Bushkin. Right? I've never seen that in my life. Why did they start doing this? They did and then even the implied opens going down. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Don't worry, the implied open is up 225. Oh, now it's up 208. Wah, wah, wah. Has anyone ever seen an implied open? Exactly. I mean, like, this week will be interesting. I think this week will be okay. If the market goes up, it's just going to prolong the inevitable. If the market tanks, I think it will tank. I don't know. I don't know who on Wall Street, after a whole week of the debauchery they probably engage in every weekend on Wall Street. I don't know if they're like they had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to think about Jeremy Grantham, Michael Burry, and every Warren Buffett and every billionaire who's on the sidelines saying, yeah, not on the sidelines, they're in the market too, saying, yeah, this thing's gonna tank. I don't know how the mood on Wall Street isn't like, you know, the sky is falling. Inflation is through the roof. Nobody with a functioning brain cell, okay? Functioning brain cell thinks that. Nobody with a functioning brain cell. So, Sarah, thank you. JG, thank you. So it's like all of this. I mean, you have all of these problems, and everything has to be perfect. No, in November was the zenith of liberal Democrat utopia. Build Back Better was about to be passed. There were no, geopolitical concerns aside from the evacuation of Afghanistan, which was a complete catastrophe that Biden botched. One of the worst diplomatic and military days in our nation's history, and all Democrats can think of is January. Interesting how they ignore the summer of that year and they ignore the pullout, the catastrophic failure of Biden. We were supposed to actually withdraw May 1st. The Doha Agreement said May 1st. And then people on the left say, well, Trump didn't follow through. It was Biden. The whole thing was for the year after, May 1st. It was agreed upon by by the T-Ban, by the government, everybody. There were prisoner swaps. All he had to do was begin the evacuation in January to ensure we got out May 1st. Then he just haphazardly decided to leave when he wanted to. Yeah, I just did. I'm looking at his YouTube channel right now. Very interesting. Very interesting. Um, yeah, Gregory Manarino. Very interesting. And so yeah, I just look at that right now. At his on his channel. But this week is going to be very, very interesting. I don't this year. I mean, this week is going to be Very, very interesting. I think that this week is going to be pretty bad for the market. I'm not saying there's not going to be some up days, but it could be so volatile that you'll see tremendous swings upwards, and then anything that happens is going to prolong the inevitable. The inevitable is that stocks crash. I've been saying this since October. I wrote about it in the Federalist. Watch the stock market crash channel. I will have, ladies and gentlemen, be here at 10 p.m. Pacific tonight. We're going to talk about the U.S. ordering the evacuation of embassies. And with Russia invading Ukraine under a Democrat administration. So who's Putin's puppet now? I mean, if this happened under Trump, all you would hear is the usual nonsense. Oh my God, what do they have on Trump? Oh my God. Well, the rest of the world does not. The world respected Trump because the knock on him was that he was unpredictable, but in a good way. Like, he was shrewd, and he had strategy, and he had a vision. You might not have liked his vision if you were on the left, but at least he had a vision. And it wasn't the nonsense that, Democrats obsess over, the left obsesses over. No. His vision was economic strength and diplomacy, and economic strength and diplomacy, and not invading, not intervening, but building up the military. That was Trump's vision. And tariffs and focusing on U.S. national security or economic security first and foremost. And ignoring multinational organizations, which was what we should do. Because they don't have our best interest in mind. They have their own interests. And so, but Biden's he doesn't even have a vision, but whatever he does have is completely opposite. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, be here 10 p.m. Pacific tonight. Thanks, everybody. Eric H526, Luke St. Martin, JG, everyone here. To my super chat, thank you. Be here, everybody. 10 p.m. Pacific tonight. 10 p.m. Pacific tonight. Thanks, everybody.